What advice would you give to those who are neurodivergent when they're on the job search?
Gosh, it's such a wide question. So I suppose there's
Yeah.
different ways of approach it. So for an autistic person, and I used to help autistic people specifically get jobs, so I can really help with that one. One thing I'd say is get as much voluntary experience as they can. A lot of autistic people I'd worked with at 24, 25, for instance, they had no experience on their CV, and volunteering can absolutely change that. There's organizations that specially help people get into volunteering. It's all like properly set up projects and stuff like that, because there's a fine line. Like, you know, I didn't want to work in volunteering when I was younger because I was like, it sounds like working for free. But I absolutely can't emphasize enough how much I saw it as a stepping stone for someone if they want to go on to employment. So volunteering, especially for a lot of autistic people I supported, as much as I could help them get a job in the area of their interest. It's not always possible, but you know, like Chris Packham, the nature and wildlife presenter on the BBC, he's autistic. And if someone had said to him when he was younger, like, you've got to stop following your passion, he wouldn't be in a job now. So if it was one thing, someone said just one thing, I'd say get experience in an area that you're interested in. There's organizations as well that can have work experience schemes. So where it's, you know, like workplaces don't feel like they're exploiting people, offering work experience as a company is a good idea. And there's funded internship programs as well. Like I said, there is a balance between someone volunteering and almost, I think, being taken advantage of. But I have seen within structured programs, it's the best thing. I helped someone get a job as a bike mechanic now 12 years ago, and he started off on work experience. Amazing. He wouldn't have a job. He bought his first house last year as well. He wouldn't have a job to this day if that company hadn't done work experience. And I'm very pragmatic, and actually he would have struggled to do application forms. He would have struggled to do an interview. He's just so good at fixing bikes. So we did a work trial, it started as work experience, and it became a work trial around fixing bikes. I think he was there. He went in 2 days a week for 6 weeks on his work experience / work trial. He's been there, you know, that was 2008. That's 13 years later. So I know some people say, people shouldn't do work experience or volunteering because it you know, you're not getting paid. But then at the same time, I'm pragmatic, and he wouldn't have got through the traditional channel. So that's the number one thing. As you can see, I'm very passionate about that. I think as someone myself, I struggle filling in forms, getting something. This sounds so basic, doesn't it? But getting people to check your stuff, like your application forms and things, because although I would want a world that we live in where it doesn't matter so much about your spelling and things like that, and people focus on your skills and experience, people might often, if they've got 100 CVs and there's spelling mistakes on some, maybe every recruiter's done it, they're like, right, they don't get through. So getting someone to check all of that stuff for you. I struggle with written communication. I always get someone to check my work. Like I said, I don't have a diagnosis or anything, but I've never done an application form without it being checked. So getting volunteering experience, work experience. And actually, I think a lot of us did when we were younger. I don't know if you don't mind me asking, did you do any volunteering or work experience when you were younger?
I did. So I think it was in year 10 or year 11, you had to do the 2 weeks work experience. I did it at Marks and Spencer's. And when I finished my GCSEs, my dad had a friend who owned a garage, and he sent me there to do some work experience for a few weeks as well.
But I loved what you just said there, because, and we didn't set this up, this is just how it's gone, but so many autistic people don't have those connections that we just talked about. So one of my first jobs came up because I went to a youth club, and a man that ran the youth club also worked in the Beefeater locally, and he got me a job washing up there. But because I had those connections, like you're talking about, through family and stuff as well, and at school, you get that experience. A lot of autistic people end up excluded from school because their needs aren't met. So they don't even get that experience we all got in year 10 or whatever it was. And a lot of the time, autistic people and their families are ostracized. So they don't get even those bits of experience you got there talking about working in the garage and stuff. So that's why I can't emphasize enough, where if I feel like we all do that volunteering and work experience to an extent, but often a lot of autistic people are excluded from society, so they don't even get to have it when we might have all had it when we were younger.
So you mentioned you work pretty much with employers now. Do you still do it on the kind of quote unquote candidate side and help individuals get into work?
Not really, but once in a while I pick up a sort of case and just do it. I don't even like the term pro bono, but like I volunteer my time to help someone. A couple of people sometimes contact me on LinkedIn and stuff and say, can I help them? Especially if their children around 14, 15. And I'll always give advice and go and meet with people and say what I think from my perspective, I've seen what works, and I know it's pragmatic, and sometimes we need to overhaul the whole system. There's lots we need. I do sometimes still help, but mostly I want to help you, the employer, change what you do so that you'll recognize if someone comes to interview and struggles with certain questions, they might be autistic, or if you've got someone who struggled with written application, but they could be fantastic at, you need creative people in your workplace. Like, are you missing out on them because they don't get through assessment centers?
So you mentioned some organizations and some charities and not-for-profits that do these sort of things.
Yeah.
Maybe if you send across some links, we can include it in the description box for people to reach out to them.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, places like the National Autistic Society have autism at work programs. You can look into charities like British Dyslexia Association. They'll have advice there for dyslexic people, Dyspraxia Foundation, and the ADHD Foundation.
Amazing. Well, we'll include all those links in the description box, and people can check it out for themselves.